Everything needs to be chilled and cold, so I keep everything cold as long as possible.
Hey everybody, Texicurians are here today with Chip Miller. Chip and his wife Jan are really good friends of ours, and Chip is quite an accomplished baker and cook and has attended a chef school. So tell us about that.
Let's see, 2003, I went out to Las Vegas and entered a brand new culinary college, just opened, fresh, got the last position in the class, the first class that went through it. In the Cordon Bleu University of Culinary Arts.
Oh, sounds very impressive.
Right. So yeah, I was very impressed at the facility and the quality of the people that were our instructors. They had French guys that worked at Bellagio.
Oh, I was just at Bellagio about 3 weeks ago.
Hired them away, brought them in, and so we learned under them. And, you know, my love of making bread or biscuits like we're going to do today originates with my grandmother, who used to roll out her dough every morning on the counter, make a pan of dinner rolls for lunch, and with the rest of the dough, she would put into a bread pan and allow it to rise, bake that off, and that's what my grandfather had for his.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All fresh.
So it was.
And that's perfect.
Quite a deal. And I just wanted to learn how to do that.
And that's where so many people are inspired by their grandparents. And tell us a little bit about, you're from a part of Texas that we have not talked about a whole lot on Texicurians, from Eagle Pass, right?
On the border.
On the border.
Agricultural family.
Agricultural family. Your family had a ranch there.
Farming, ranching, feedlot business. We even grew vegetables. We grew onions, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, cantaloupe, spinach, all of these things. And the area there is mild enough that we pretty much had an 11-month growing season. We could do a lot of different things with the land, throughout the year.
That's why it's called the Garden Belt of Texas.
That's right. It's winter garden.
Winter garden.
Winter garden.
Right. The winter garden. Right. That's exactly right.
Okay, so today we're going to do, kind of in honor of our cowboy background here, we're going to do some cowboy biscuits with a little bit of a twist. We're going to put a little French version on it.
Oh.
That we may have learned or not learned in culinary school.
Okay.
These are buttermilk biscuits that we're going to put together and then fold 3 different times, bake them off so that they get the rise to them and they create layers, kind of like a croissant.
Oh my God.
Not exactly, but
so there's the
similar.
French part.
Yes.
That's where the French part.
That's the French part.
Okay.
We're going to inject into this deal today. And so the primary thing on any buttermilk biscuit that you're making, everything needs to be cold. Okay, so but in the case where you're folding your dough, you want to be darn sure that everything is cold for as long as possible before they go into the oven.
There's the secret.
Yeah, and so we've got the oven on 425. We have started with a frozen 2 sticks of butter, frozen, and we're going to finish grating it.
All right, so you're measuring the flour, and you just took this out of the refrigerator because
I took it out of the freezer.
Oh, the freezer.
I like to keep it in the freezer. In fact, that's one way to be sure you never get any bugs in your flour. Just leave it in the freezer.
Just leave it in the freezer. So there's a good tip. And is it 2 cups?
3 1/4 cups.
Okay.
We're making a pretty big batch.
And you're just using all-purpose flour.
Got to be all-purpose flour. You don't want to use bread flour for this. Has to do with the structure.
Okay.
I got our cold buttermilk. Let me get the butter out.
Okay.
keeping it cold as long as possible. Butter at room temperature. You know, it's hard to work with.
So you're pulling the butter out of the freezer, you grated it, and then put it back in the freezer just so it would stay plenty cold.
And I grated it on parchment paper, and now I'm just going to pour it in. Okay? I want to try to get as much off of there as I can. I want all the butter I can in the mix. Doesn't have to be perfect.
Now, do you like to use salted butter or unsalted butter?
Unsalted.
Unsalted.
That way you can add the salt according to the recipe. It doesn't overdo it, overpower it. I'm a salt person. I love salt. So I would be one of those that would probably get along just fine with the salted. Okay. Now, put that away.
Salt
Done with it.
definitely your preference. Okay, do you need a spoon or what?
Nope, all I'm gonna do is my finger.
Ah, the hand.
I use my finger.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got a good little mix on it. Now, Cindy is going to measure
Hi, I have a job. Woo-hoo.
1.5 cups.
All right.
Now, we all know this is a dry measure
Right.
and this is a wet measure. So we don't put 1.5 cups of this and say that that is 1.5 cups. No, you go to the
Go to the
liquid measure.
Okay. So
Okay, so 1 cup will be right up there to the top. So I'm gonna make a dough out of this with my fingertips. I'm not pressing real hard, okay? I'm just kind of turning it, handling it lightly. It's sticky, so I'm keeping one hand clean and one hand with the dough on it.
Oh, okay. There's so much technique to this.
This is the whole deal.
That it's all about the technique because you could take any of these ingredients and throw them together.
That is exactly what I was going to say, is that people have asked me before for a recipe like for bread or croissants, as an example, Danish. Oh, you're going to have to give me the recipe. And then I'll say, okay, I'll give you the recipe, and then I'll have to give you the 3-hour technique of how you bring that all together. So what we're trying to do here is not overwork it.
So, tablespoon of kosher salt.
Mm.
And
Good.
yep, you won't quite that much. Just
All right, oh yeah, just everywhere. There we go.
And what is your thinking on kosher salt as opposed to just regular iodized salt?
I don't really have too much
To say about that?
You know what? I buy the kosher salt, so that means I must think it's better.
I've always heard it's a little less saltier.
It might
Does
be.
that make sense?
Yeah,
Or have you heard that?
It's not quite as strong. Okay, so now we've got a good little mix on this. What I need next, wipe that down a little bit there, is a little touch of flour on the board.
I'm so impressed how you've kept one hand totally clean. That's such a great idea because I've caught myself with stuff on both my hands many times, and that's a great idea just to do it with one hand.
What I'm going to do now is just kind of turn this out onto the board that I was working with. Okay, so that I can work it. I'm going to have to go with both hands coming up. All right, boy, that looks like a mess, doesn't it? And that's how biscuits kind of are. They're kind of messy and they're rustic. Put all these together, and I'm going to form a rectangle. Okay, and I want it to look like this. I'm not trying to get a real smooth kind of finish on it like I would for maybe bread dough or something. So I'm putting this together.
So it doesn't, you don't worry about the fact that it's not all smooth.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm going to handle it 2 more times, maybe 3, and turn that one back to it. Now, I'm going to reach over here with my right hand. That's going to get my handle all messed up. I'm going to adjust it a little bit. So now it's somewhat loose still. I'm going to fold over one time to the middle, okay?
Okay.
And then I'm going to fold over. Fold this one over the top. I'm not going to worry about this right here.
Okay, that's good.
It's
Good
still
to
good.
hear because
It's still
I was
good.
like, oh no, we've got these little pieces over here.
Don't worry.
No
We'll
problem.
put them on top here because they're going to
Okay.
get folded in. Once you get started, you got to keep moving because of the chill factor. It's got to stay cold. See how it's already starting to now take a little more shape. I can handle it.
Oh yeah.
So it doesn't look quite as rough as it did. I'm going to fold it one more time. But before I do that, would you mind putting that pan in the oven for me?
I sure can.
We're going to let
So
that
this
butter
has
melt
just
on
a
there.
little bit of butter on here.
Yep.
We're gonna let that melt.
We're going to heat the pan up. You don't have to do that. It's not part of the deal, just my personal preference. Okay, so now we're down to the third roll. Okay, you notice each time when I got the little square, I turned it and pressed it down, okay?
Oh, okay.
I'm going to have a small square here when I'm done. Just like that. Now we've got layers upon layers, even though it doesn't look like it. You've got layers of butter, flour, all mixed together.
Oh yeah,
Turn
I
it.
can't believe how much it's taken shape.
So you turn it. And now I'm going to move it. I'm going to take it down to its final shape that we're going to use.
Okay, and about how tall would you say that's gonna be?
Oh, this is 2 inches right here for sure, maybe a little more. If you're using a, here's our little cutter. This would be the time that you would dip that in flour and then cut your, okay? Dip
Okay.
into flour, cut it. Dip into flour, cut it. Why am I dipping it into flour? To keep it from catching on the edges, because you want smooth edges on if you want to rise and look good.
Oh,
Okay?
okay.
So I've got the same thing kind of going on here, but this is a rustic deal. Do you want to check the pan now?
Yep.
My normal way of doing this is to cut it into thirds, okay? With the big knife,
Okay.
I take the whole batch of dough, cut it into thirds, and then I come back and start portioning them out like this.
Oh, those look beautiful. Wow.
Okay, now we got biscuits.
So that's about
Well, what-
15 biscuits, I guess, right?
Let's count that out.
5 on each side.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now we're going to pop these into the oven
Okay.
right away. We don't want them to get to room temperature. We're going to pop them into the oven.
Thank you so much for cooking with me. I'm so honored that you would take the time to do it and share a little bit about Eagle Pass, a little bit about your ranching history, your grandma's recipe. Really appreciate it, Chip. We have a tradition at Texicurians that once we cook together, you're a Texicurian. And
What?
this is for
For me?
you.
Thank you. You have honored me. You've honored me by bringing me in. I've been following you. I've been watching all the recipes and all the guests that have been coming in. And I am really honored.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.